Hello, welcome to our webinar today. We are so excited that you are here. I'm Whitney White. I am Director of Marketing for North America. Joining me, I've got Neil Jones and Gordon Head. Neil, do you want to introduce yourself as you drink?
Thanks, Whitney. Yeah, thanks, Whitney. Yeah, I'm one of the technical account management directors for Canada. And you're going to introduce Gordy, or am I going to? I'll do it. So ironically, when we scheduled this webinar, this is going to be kind of a fun thing to say. So when we scheduled this webinar originally, Gordy, who was a dealer, and he was going to share his experience on installing IQ panels in commercial solutions. Ironically, since then, Gordy, now you've changed your name. Gordy has made the jump and has actually joined JCI as our new director of sales for Canada. So yeah, again, when this was started, it's just full transparency. Gordy is now an employee, but he will be speaking as as the voice of the customer, and just sharing his experiences from when he was using IQ panel in commercial settings. So just
yeah.
full transparency.
Hi everybody. I'm looking forward to today.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's good. Thank you, Neil, for the introduction. I'm looking forward to today. I got a lot of experience to share, and I'm happy to be at the session.
Yes, so a couple housekeeping items. If you guys can find your go-to webinar control panel and just scroll down into the chat section or the question section, that's where you can communicate with us. So type in there where you're at, what the weather's like, anything like that. I'm in Utah and it is slightly snowy, super fun. I was looking forward to it being spring and then it snowed, so it's fine. But Neil and Gordy, you guys are traveling right now, right?
Yeah, we're in Toronto right now. We're meeting with the Canadian sales and technical account management team, and developing our strategy for the rest of the year. It's awesome.
Perfect. Well, this webinar is being recorded, so ask your questions live, get real answers. We have Mark, Bo in the background answering questions, and I'll keep my eye on it too, so I can vocalize those questions to you guys. And you will be able to go back and rewatch this presentation on YouTube. We have a whole playlist of all of our webinars that we've done in the past, and we will continue to add to it. So we're so excited. The commercial solution with IQ Panel 4 and everything is kind of a hot topic right now, but we want to know a couple things. So I want to start with a poll. I want to know if you are currently installing Qualsys products. So go ahead and click on there and answer there. We have lots of people on. We've got Marvin, Glenn, Robert, Mark, Angie. Thank you guys for joining. Perfect. Nottingham, UK, it's wet and windy, says Ashley. Holy cow. Ohio, it's 54 degrees. Florida, 64. Ugh, that sounds like a dream. Okay, so we've got about 83% of people on today currently installing Qualsys products. So that's a good to know. And then we also want to know, are you currently installing IQ Panel in a commercial application? So the answer is here, yes, for small business and commercial both, only for small business, only for commercial, or not yet. So go ahead and answer there. Got lots of people on today. New Orleans, 72 degrees and sunny. That sounds amazing. I was down south in St. George this weekend and it got up to 70 and it was so nice to have on a t-shirt and not a hoodie. Okay, so we've got about 52% of yes, installing Qualsys Pro IQ Panel for both small business, commercial. Only 21% only small business, 1% only commercial, and 26% not yet. So good to know. Should we do the next polls or do you want to wait a little bit, Neil?
You know what? Let's do all the polls now.
Let's do it now. Okay. So the next one, are you currently using PowerG for small business and commercial installs? Yes or not yet? Oh, we've got a good mix. Will. Will is here in Utah and he is asking me to not ask for spring weather because he wants more snow. He snowboards. I don't snowboard. Maybe that's the rub. I have a cold allergy. Did you know that was a real thing?
That's not a real thing.
It's a real thing, I promise. So when I get cold, I break out in hives, and I got it after my first pregnancy. I have to take allergy pills.
So you have to take allergy pills in the winter?
Yep, and I live in Utah, so it snows, and I have to take allergy pills. And if I go outside, any exposed skin gets red and breaks out in hives.
That's crazy.
And it doesn't go away till I take a hot shower. So sorry, Will, I will be wishing for spring weather. Okay, so that poll, 85% yes, 15% not yet for PowerG and commercial installs. And then, of course, the hottest topic, right, this time of year. Are you coming to ISC West? It's in Vegas, right? As it is in every year. So we want to know if you're coming. If you're coming and you want to set up a meeting, you're not quite sure yet, or just straight up, we've decided it's a no from us. So let us know where you're at. But yeah, the doctor said with my cold allergy, it should go away in 5 to 10 or 7 to 10 years. Totally.
Wow. I did not know that was a thing. That's crazy.
When she told me that's what it was, she laughed. My doctor did. And then she said, be glad I didn't get the heat allergy or the sun allergy. So apparently, I don't know. All right, we've got about 20% undecided. So let's see if we can't get you guys all decided. We do, before I forget, we do have some handouts here on your GoToWebinar control panel. If you go to the handout section, we have commercial sales slicks that you guys can download and use as you see fit. And then there's also a small business and commercial flyer. So you might find those useful. And with that, Neil, I think I'm done talking. I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, as always, Whitney. You can see the deck, right? Just making sure.
Yeah. It looks great.
Perfect, thank you. So, one of the main reasons we wanted to, host these, commercial IQ panel, kind of solutions is, as the global supply chain, continues to evolve, and, we're still seeing a lot of challenges from that standpoint, especially with, our Neo panels and our radios, right? We're seeing, a great opportunity that I think we have not done a good job overall of just making sure that people are aware, just exactly, how the IQ panel can fit into, into a commercial environment, right? So, we look at, IQ panel 4, I mean, and you've seen it all, right? 7 all-inch, all-in-one AC touchscreen, the octa-core system on a module, PowerG dual SRF. I mean, alone, that's great, right? You add in, faster and better range on the PowerG, the LTE, Bluetooth, and, the Z-Wave, right? The better speakers, the flex tilt, the cameras, the camera, the new smart mount installation system. Again, we heard that feedback. The new wall plate is going to be cutting in very soon. If you haven't seen it, I strongly encourage you to go to our our Facebook pages and just take a look, right? And that just how we're able to react to your your questions, your comments. And quickly adapt, right? Again, right, we released it, we released IQ Panel 4, started hearing some feedback on that wall plate, and there is an all new wall plate, right? But, and again, the panel comes in, it comes in white or black too, right? So, everybody knows what IQ Panel 4 is, right? If we look at our current hybrid offerings, on the left, we got our Power Series Neo, right? So everybody knows Neo, it's a strong panel, 128 PowerG wireless zones, it's got alarm.com, it's got the JCI, LTE communicator through Connect 24. Everybody knows the specs, 120-bit AES encryption. It's got all the PowerG devices, UL 2610, 1610, ULCS 34. The challenge, unknown, right? When are we going to see communicators? When are we going to get panels? are we going to see more shortages? Developing. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that the global supply chain is not getting any better. But and then you kind of look, and here we are on the right with the IQ4 and the IQ Hardwire PowerG module. Pretty comparative, right? It's a hybrid platform. It also has up to 128 PowerG zones. It's got the alarm.com communicator. Big difference, it's included. You're not having to buy that separate communicator. You have LTE and Wi-Fi, right? So you have dual path, the same as you could have LTE and a Cat5 IP connection on the Neo. The same portfolio of PowerG devices, the same UL and ULC listings, and it's available now, right? So one of the things that we wanted to, help, again, this is ultimately you're gonna install what you want to install in a commercial, a commercial location. We just want to make sure that you're armed with, all the right information, to make an informed decision, and is IQ4, with a wired to wireless module going to be the solution for every single install? No, of course not. It's not going to work on an oil rig, right? That's not the intent, right? But for most, small business and commercial locations, the IQ4 stacks up against the Power Series Neo, and we're using this as a comparative, very, very well, right? So one of the big things I think that people are may not know is the wired to wireless module actually gets an enhancement next week, right? So this is the IQ Hardwire PowerG module. When IQ, firmware 4.1 drops next week, we will add support for zone expanders on these modules, right? So you're allowed to connect 2 modules, or you're able to connect 2 modules to any of the IQ panels. So IQ4 obviously first, and then IQ 2 Plus will have the same flexibility. We'll say early April, right? But right now, end of February, you're going to be able to add 4 zone expanders to each of the IQ Hardwire PowerG modules, right? So now, if you think about that, that's 40 zones, 80 zones with 2 modules. So now you have the flexibility of, still 128 zones. You can have 80 hardwired zones. You can, everything is, it's very easily stacked up, right? There's 4 partitions. When we looked at, we look at our overall, install volume of Neos, over the last, 2 years, and kind of what's been activated, a high overwhelming majority used less than 4 partitions, less than 3 keypads, less than 8 hardwired zones, right? So there is nothing stopping you from using the IQ4, in that commercial environment, right? So again, you're going to have, 4 partitions, like I said, keypads. Yeah, you can do 16 keypads on a Neo, 8 just on the IQ4, and that's a mix of the 3 IQ remotes and 5 of the PowerG wire-free keypads. And then once you add the the IQ Hardwire PowerG module, we're up to 12 keypads now, right? You've got 3 IQ remotes, 5 of the PowerG wire-free keypads, and 4 hardwired keypads when you're using those 2 modules, right? The same thing when we were looking at those stats. How many people need more than 242 users? It's, again, an overwhelming majority are below 200 users, right? And then, there is other advantages, obviously, right? You get dual SRF on an IQ4, right? So you can take over those legacy, GE, Honeywell, DSE 433 devices, right? The same number of PowerG repeaters. One of the big differences, the PowerG PIR cams, you need a special receiver. If you're using it on a Power Series Neo on an IQ panel, you don't need that receiver, right? It's just there. We have programmable outputs, right? Again, using the IQ Hardwire PowerG, you have very flexible capability on those, those PGMs. You can reuse the same PGM. We ran out of scenarios when we were testing the functionality of the PGMs. We ran out of things to do. I had one PGM running, I think it was 13 different, options, so to speak, and I just couldn't come up with anything else. Wi-Fi built in, Alarm.com integration built in. You don't need that Alarm.com, add-on communicator, which is, we all know, is a challenge right now. And then you have all of the, the other nice to haves, right? The benefits, right? Having full automation, you get it across Neo, you get it through IQ4, integration with Control 4, being able to live view your Alarm.com cameras, potentially doorbells in small business, having garage door control. So, I mean, you have all of it on Neo when you're using an Alarm.com communicator, but it's only on the app, right? You get the added advantage when you're using an IQ4 of getting it on the app or on the touchscreen, right? And, keeping in mind, even the 7-inch touchscreen that's available for Neo, it has limited control. You have full control over, on the IQ4. Again, you're not going to go wrong with either solution, but we just want to make sure people, we're properly, making sure that the information is making it across to you, that you can see, just when you start putting them side by side, they are very comparative, right? Built-in language translation, right? 13 languages on the IQ4, right? Bluetooth disarming, and it's partitionable. That's something a lot of people don't realize, that we added too, is just that ability for the Bluetooth disarm to just disarm certain partitions, right? So Gordy, I know you've seen this slide, previously. What kind of experiences have you had, installing IQ panels in commercial settings?
Well, honestly, the company was a little reluctant. We used the product everywhere with residential, and it became a residential mindset. And even the technicians and everybody in the field talked about it as a residential product. And we use Neo exclusively on our commercial applications. What changed was, supply chain issues. So we had to start thinking a little different. Once you release the wired to wireless module, that was a game changer, because a lot of hardwire solutions in all of those applications, and to be able to add those hardwired keypads that might be already in the spec and all the cabling's already ran, now it gave us the ability to say, well, why don't we try? Why don't we put it in a small business and not just think about it as a residential? At the same time, I don't even think we realized that there was 4 partitions and 128 zones, because we would never use it to that capability normally in the residential side of the business. So it almost came a like for like replacement, and the PowerG technology we were already familiar with the residential side. It works beautifully. We were able to do large applications with PowerG, so we're very comfortable with it. We've done full theaters, like a Cineplex, for example. I don't know, from my perspective, it's almost even better now that you've been listening to the dealer network, and it's obvious, because the very first question when we brought our technicians the 8-zone wired to wireless was the fact that it only had 8 zones. Can we add zone expanders to it? Was the very first question. And here you go. Now we can go up to 40 zones, I believe, on each unit. So that's exciting. At first, the reluctancy is there, but after you get past that and throughout the mindset of, we have to wire everything, we have to use a Neo. Hey, it's simple, it works.
Yeah, well, thanks, Corey. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. As we look.
Questions.
Yep, sure.
Questions. Okay, hold on, now I gotta find them. Are the regular DSC keypads limited when connected to the IQ Panel 4? What features would be missing for the customer, if any? Asks Eric.
What features are missing? I don't think anything that a customer would be using. The trouble menu is available. The alarm memory is available. I think bypass is not available. I think that's one of the enhancements we are coming, is being able to bypass from the the HS2 LCD keypad. But other than that, functionality wise, they're very similar to what you would experience on a Neo.
Perfect.
Good question.
And then Sean asks, is the IQ panel rated for commercial intrusion or commercial fire, or both?
It is rated for commercial intrusion, so UL 2610 in the States and ULC S304 in Canada. It is not a UL fire panel, no.
Perfect. Eric asks, are there plans to have CanTech integration with IQ Panel 4 in the future?
Yes, that's all. At this point, all I can say is yes, but there is plans for CanTech and some of our other partners integration. Yes, for sure.
Okay, and then is it only zone expanders, or can you add additional power or PGSMs? Asks Jeff.
Okay, so you can add to each module, you can add one Neo HSM 2300 power supply, and those are obviously supervised power supplies. As part of that enhancement to the IQ Hardwire PowerG, there's an all new housing, right? Unfortunately, we don't have the pictures yet. It's a much bigger housing that you can fit all 4 zone expanders in. You obviously would need a separate can for your power supply, because obviously you're going to need a battery for that as well. But yeah, you can put 2300 modules in. As far as, I don't think I got the last part. What was the more PGMs?
PGSMs? Where did it go? I lost it.
Yeah, it was PGMs. I'm pretty sure that's what they were asking. If you can add more outputs, for example.
Yeah, well, again, right, because one of the main differences that we can do with IQ4 is we can use the same PGMs in multiple different ways, right? So, just the fact that you have 4 PGMs on each IQ Hardwire PowerG module, even those 4 PGMs, I can make it do 50 different things easily, right? You can have latching, timer, just, triggering by zone type, by system status. Like, there's a lot of flexibility built into the PGMs because we're able to use that logic and that processing power of the IQ4 to be able to, make those PGMs, do things that, you would traditionally have but a harder time doing on a Neo or on any hardwired panel. Then you can kind of use, the IQ4's brain to be able to do, some pretty cool things with them.
I have a question, Neil. Actually, it just sparked a question. Can you trip the PGMs through the alarm.com app?
Okay, so right now, we're waiting on our partners at alarm.com to finish that integration where we're going to be able to trip the PGMs, and they'll be called command outputs on alarm.com, right? So you'll actually have the flexibility to trigger command outputs. There are some workarounds right now to be able to trigger from alarm.com. If you were a perfect example, if you wanted a gate to open and close, there's a couple different options. First, you can you could use a key fob. So any of our key fobs that have the star button, you can actually use those to trigger PGMs. So that's the first thing. But from the alarm.com side, if you had a spare partition, so you only needed 2 or 3 partitions, you can put those whatever you're looking, say again, trip a gate, trip a door, on a secondary partition or on a partition by itself, and then actually use its disarming status to trip the PGMs. So there is a workaround right now, but we're looking, pretty soon that alarm.com will be able to release the PGM support from the app.
Thank you.
Great
Perfect.
question.
We have lots more questions, but I think Mark and Bo are doing a pretty good job answering them. So let's keep going, and if we have time at the end, we'll ask some more.
We look at this in the transition, and we has already kind of begun, right? When we reach out to our partners at alarm.com and we say, hey, give us the last 12 months, just high level data, right? Obviously, the data is owned by, alarm.com and, our dealers. We don't have access to it, but we just said we'd love to know over the last 12 months, how many Power Series Neos were activated versus how many IQ panels were activated using a commercial plan, like a commercial service plan and a commercial site type, right? And we, in this example, and these are real numbers, we can easily see that the IQ panels going into commercial is, almost double the number of Power Series Neos that are going in, right? So we're seeing that transition already beginning, where people are starting to realize, again, we probably haven't done the best job of educating our partners that, the IQ panels are suitable for commercial environments. And again, not for every environment, but the majority of environments, you can do it, right? 4 partitions, the ability for screen lock, integration with alarm.com access control. Obviously, you get your remote disarm photos. There's no again, there's going to be, an oil rig. I don't want you to put an IQ panel on an oil rig. But if it's somebody, if it's a warehouse, if it's a shop, schools, we have PowerG, right? At the end of the day, you're getting all the benefits of PowerG that you had with Power Series Neo. You're getting all that wired capability, and then you have PowerG, right? So, everything becomes easier when you can use PowerG in that long range transmission, right? We've seen these examples coming in from Facebook, right? There's IQ panel 2 with 2 keypads connected to it, right? We show demos, and you can find these on our Facebook groups, right? Where, people, are concerned there might be a lag or what. There is no lag, right? You arm the, you can press away, stay, and you'll hear the panel in the background enunciating, that the system's armed, like within, we're talking microseconds from pressing the button, right? One of the cool things now, with our 319, gold box panels, IQ2 or IQ4, is you can also mix and match, right? You can use the IQ16F, you can use the IQ hardwire PowerG, right? So, you can do pretty well whatever you want, right? And, there's pros and cons, right? You can, not cons, but there's different benefits, to, being able to connect keypads, being able to take zone expanders as an example, right? But if you needed to get to 128 zones, you could use 2 IQ hardwire PowerGs. That's bringing you to 80. And you can put 2 16Fs on there, if you needed to get to 128 wireless zones. But, we truly believe, that PowerG is that differentiator that, I think, and I lived on the dealer side for, the majority of my career. and I was a hardwire guy. I was, everything had to be wired. And I look at it now, and it's, I think back and I'm like, I should have adopted PowerG way before, right? PowerG is a game changer. I mean, Gordy, from your standpoint, when you were on the dealer side, like how did PowerG give you a big advantage, or did it?
It definitely did. Well, for starters, we were very comfortable with the distance. There was not a location that it wouldn't reach, or with a repeater or anything that we would add to it. The line was very full, so there's lots of different options. Odd items that people don't think about is we could stock one item on the vans rather than two or three. So we streamlined what we were using every day, so it created efficiencies. But probably the biggest thing, and I know that it's a cost of doing business in this world, is go backs. The go backs, completely flip flopped. We weren't going back, and we didn't have to go back. Still, we haven't been back for changing batteries. Like the battery life is long. The clients are happy. They look clean. They install great. And it works. Actually, I was going to mention one other thing too, Neil, is the Facebook sites. I followed them all as well, and it was pretty neat to watch how quickly the teams react to some of the questions. But was even better, I actually seen one or two of our technicians that were asking a question, and there was another technician at another company that actually answered it before anybody else. So that whole we're all in this together feeling was kind of cool. So. I enjoyed that, but I did tell everybody this quite often, and I told everybody that PowerG was named after me. So I was an early adopter. So
of course you did. I was talking to a dealer like 2 weeks ago based out of Texas, and they had also switched to commercial with IQ Panel 4, and I was talking to them about like what were some of the bigger installs that they've done, or what was it that made them truly convert? And I'm looking for my notes. And he said that they did a 300,000 square foot multi-building farm. And he's like, that's what converted me, because before he would look at IQ Panel 4 and be like, oh, it's so sleek, it's so pretty. Like commonly, like I thought it was just a residential panel. And then when I talked to the sales rep, learned it was commercial, and he put it in, and he's like, I was nervous to like touch it in a farm, but he's like, it was, and even now he's like, I haven't been back to that customer. It is as rough and tough as anything else. They've had no connectivity issues with PowerG, and he's like, I'm all in. That was because there's always one site, right? There's always one install that converts the dealer, and for him, he's like, a farm. he still was kind of surprised by it, but I'm still learning. I love hearing experiences with PowerG, because for me it converts me beyond just what we talk about. We've done some cool testing with PowerG, and I'm not a tech, so I'm like, oh, that's impressive, like I don't know any different. But when I hear something like that, I'm like, oh, okay, so like it really is a game changer. It's not just range or anything, like we're not just saying it really does make a big difference. So I love that.
Oh, 100%. And Bo or Mark, if you can find that salt flats testing for the PowerG range tested in the desert, you should drop it in the chat. Like
we did one at Seascape too. I'll try to find them and drop them for us.
Cool. All right, so this is it's an illustrative price comparison, right? Like there is no, everybody's going to have different pricing. Everybody's going to have some different tiers, right? But if you start to look, and we'll focus on the top part, like being table stakes, right? More than 100 zones, we've got it. DSC's got it. Residio's got it. Bosch, in this case, does not. DMP does. Number of partitions. You can see that IQ panel, the IQ panel 4 with the wire to wireless module, is comparative across the board to our own, Neo panels, to the Vista panels, to Bosch, to DMP. There are, there's some things that, we all do well, right? Long range encrypted wireless, Qualys and DSC and DMP's got it, right? Dual SRF, it's only us. right? You know, having those live view video cameras and live answering alarm.com doorbells, having a built-in camera, this is where we reign, so to speak, right? That we have, all, everything you need from a table stake standpoint of having, the minimums, right? The 4 partitions, the 100 zones, the over 200 user codes, right? We've all got them. But then you start looking at the price, right? And IQ Panel 4 sitting here at $525, right? But again, prices are illustrative. Everybody's gonna have different prices, right? And then across the board, like it's a couple $100 more, right? And there may be applications where Neo or another panel, hopefully not, but is required. But for the majority, right? And there's no shortages of IQ panels. There's no, we see the road ahead. Supply chain is good, right? We continue to struggle with the alarm.com modules for the Power Series Neo and Power Series Pro, right? So again, this is purely illustrative. Everybody's going to look at their pricing differently, but all the message we're trying to get across, I think, is that the IQ Panel 4, the wired to wireless module, it can replace other solutions. And again, right, from a dealer standpoint, I'd rather carry one panel and a bunch of sensors, right? I don't want to carry multiple panels. I don't want to have to carry different peripherals. At Gordy, I think you kind of mentioned that too, right? From a just having you were a Neo shop, and then you've got moving to IQ Panel 4, but just having that standardized I need these contacts, these motions, these these glass breaks, these smokes, these COs, whatever. Like that must have been a time saver for your inventory folks as well, right?
Well, honestly, there's only so much space in the vans that we send out. There's only so many products you can handle. It's so important to streamline the products that you're using, and as far as I'm concerned, I think there's a cost there that you're not. If you want to go back one slide too, that it stood out to me, was just the cost of installation as well. It's time. It's quicker to put that IQ4 in than it is to put the CAN and the remote dialer and the keypad. And so there is some other benefits there that I'm not sure that you're going to mention, but that's what we noticed.
Yeah, just from the installation standpoint, using the install wizard that is built into all IQ panels, again, right, not having to get that secondary radio. We've conservatively looked and just said, just using and just comparing our own products, you can install an IQ Panel 4 with the same features and benefits as the Power Series Neo in probably 2.5 hours less, just from a programming standpoint. Again, not having to run any wires, having the flexibility now. And that's one of the things that I should have focused on earlier too, is that wired to wireless module is PowerG, right? So if you start thinking that in our classic hardwired world, you're having to hardwire everything back to a central location, right? You don't have that with when you're using an IQ panel and one of our the IQ hardwire PowerG wired to wireless modules, that could be a remote zone expander, right? You can run wires in the warehouse to that centralized location, and then everything is transmitting back to the panel over PowerG. You're not having to run everything or home run everything all the way to one centralized location, right? Think about that with outbuildings, right? Or a warehouse with a small office and a trailer. You could put the IQ panel inside the main building. It's talking PowerG. You can put these other modules there if you want in these remote buildings. Maybe they're not heated. You're worried, potentially worried about battery life or something. You could wire those internally and have them transmit back to the panel by PowerG, right? So there's a lot of flexibility to having a wireless zone expander, so to speak, right? Is that something that you in your past life, Corey, did you use it that way, like a wireless zone expander?
Well, there was never really anything else out there that would go that far, right? Wireless wise. So traditionally it was always wiring a zone expander. You got to get that quad wire to the back of the warehouse and put a zone expander in, and the time and the money, in most cases it's conduit, it's J hooks, it's all the extras that you don't think about. Now this wired to wireless, you screw it to the wall and you keep going. Even in residential, like you said, outbuildings, you could have a garage, a detached garage. You put one of those modules in, you could put a keypad off of it. You could wire the 2 garage doors into it and the man door. it's all in one and ready to go. So, you know, and then you're not worried about battery life in the garage either. The temperature could be lower. You do everything hardwire. So.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. All right, so you know we have some real world. You know, this is feedback from from some dealers. And we've kind of averaged it out here, but this is it's hardwired versus PowerG at the end of the day, right? Grew up in the industry, always hardwired everything. Again, I wish PowerG existed 25, 30 years ago. My knees wouldn't hurt so bad. I probably wouldn't have fallen off as many ladders and drilled through my hand a few times, because it didn't exist. Right, that range didn't exist, and everything had to be wired, right? Because that's how we grew up in the industry, right? So we looked at in this scenario, we'll call it a big box store, 90 zones, right? Motions, glass breaks, contacts, right? 6 partitions in this case, right? So again, we're talking, again, PowerG versus hardwired. This is not panel specific, right? So 6 partitions, each with their own keypad. So we started to look, right? So first off, the labor, we'll call it $50, 8 hours, 7 days times 2. You're $5,600 in labor, right? To wire these buildings, right? And then you're $1,500 in hardware, $1,200 in devices. Who knows? I mean, conduit. We didn't even put a number there, but you could probably put $500, $600, $1,000. A scissor lift rental, because you had to get up to get up to the rafters, get those wires in. The cost of wire, we threw $200 in there, right? $8,500, right, to do this kind of install. Now we switch it off to using IQ platforms and PowerGs, right? So labor is, first off, it's about 32 hours, right? So we've cut, if you think about that, we went from 50 times 8, so 8 times 50, 112 hours versus 32 hours. All right, so your labor is $1,600. Your hardware is $1,030. Your devices are going to cost more because they're wireless, right? But they're $4,275. Your wire was $10. You had to wire the transformer, maybe a wired to wireless module in. $6,900, right? Same job, $6,900, right? So you kind of look, $8,500, $6,900, and then it gets interesting. You freed up 80 hours of labor for the next install, and you saved $1,600 in cost. Like, how is that not a win-win scenario, right? You've freed up two weeks of labor, and you save money on the installation costs. You actually sold it for the same amount. Your customer's going to have a better experience. They don't have to have wires running all over the place. They very simple. PowerG for the win, right? So when you look at it, IQ platforms, PowerG, it enables you to do more jobs in less time. That's ultimately, and in today's day and age, right? I mean, we have labor shortages everywhere. Getting switch, if you haven't started using PowerG, or you're still doing some wired, you really should look at just purely going to PowerG, right? People have always again, right, maybe we haven't done a great job of explaining that we have specific devices that are kind of intended for commercial, right? You look at the 9309, right? This is it's the wrong image, but this is the 9309 is it's a high capacity, high traffic commercial contact, right? You're getting 5 to 8 years of battery life out of it. It's smart enough that you can, especially in a commercial location where doors are open and closing, big box stores, whatever the case may be, you can actually tell it, and the panel is smart enough to basically say to the device, hey, when you're disarmed, just go to sleep, right? Don't send me any signals. Because it doesn't matter. The panel is disarmed. And again, it's an option. You don't have to use it, but it basically extends that battery life. So when you arm the system, it basically sends a command back to keeping in mind that PowerG is a two-way communication. It sends that command back to the contact saying, hey, time to wake up, right? The panel is armed, time to wake up, and it does, right? We have the 9312, the outdoor magnetic wireless magnetic contact. I love this device, right? We do not do a good enough job of getting this device out there. I've got it on my gate. I've got it on both my gates, my garage door. I live in Edmonton, Alberta. It is cold. It's been installed a good, 18 months now. I would be shocked if my battery is even, barely depleted, right? It's a commercial grade, environmentally sealed, contact, right? And then we have, two different, ceiling mount motion detectors, the 9862 and the 9872. PowerG indoor sirens. They also have strobe lights. Something again, we need to, do a better job, right? We have a strobe light on our indoor siren as well. You can turn it on or turn it off. Our outdoor, curtain PIR detectors, perfect for, for commercial. Our wireless outdoor sirens, the shock sensors, flood detectors. Whitney, this is flood twice. Flood detectors. I've lived through a flood in my house. I would hate owning a business and living through that as well. So having that, those flood detectors, in strategic locations. The PG 9994, and there's the 9944, but the PG 9994 is an outdoor rated commercial. It's an outdoor rated commercial motion sensor, not a flood detector. And then there's the 44 version, which actually has the PIR cam, or the the ability for still camera images directly from that motion. And then obviously we have the wired to wireless expansion module, right? Now, what you don't see is all the other cool stuff that's coming, right? So specifically for commercial applications, right? The first thing we're about to go into launch, Optex beams, PowerG Optex beams, right? So, I'll urge anybody who's on this call, Mark, please drop the TAM information for tomorrow. With Adrian and Mark, we'll be presenting on the TAM workshop. We're actually going to have, the PowerG Optex beams as part of this, right? So perimeter protection for commercial locations. People have been asking for this for years. Again, I wish PowerG existed many, many years ago when I didn't have to core, driveways to run wires to be able to get, these Optex beams, functional. Now it's all PowerG. A great, 3 to 5 year battery life on our Optex beams. We have IQ lockdown coming. This is going to be a game changer for people. Active shooter situations, God forbid. Being able to, secure certain places and, secure certain buildings and rooms, safe rooms, so to speak. In pharmacies, cash offices. Having that flexibility to lock things, lock things down and just, give people, a piece of sense of security. I mean, Gordy, now that you've joined the dark side, what would you want to see as some more commercial devices? Because ultimately we have that, communication path with our product team, which is amazing. They're actually downstairs in the same hotel that we're in right now. What would you want to see from a commercial standpoint? Both hats. We're both hats.
I think that luckily I've had a great relationship with your TAM team. I've been on a lot of beta things for the last little while. So my mind's a little biased when it comes to that, because you've been listening and reacting and building stuff. It's so refreshing to see that we can give a concept and see something come to market in a normal amount of time. That's what excites me. But things like that Optex beam, just probably 2 weeks ago, I had one of the guys on my team. He asked me, what can we do for this large construction site? This is a very, very large construction site. So I did suggest to him that 9994 outdoor motion detector to put in each corner. I did explain to him that it's, it'll be a little sensitive. We might get false alarms, make sure the client realizes that, because it's outdoors and stuff. It was a pretty active site. But now I would change that opinion, especially after this morning seeing it. I would say use that Optex beam and the quad one, because it's exactly what you're looking, that line crossing going into a construction site. If you mount that properly, I think that's exciting. Also the lockdown that's going to be released. I actually had it in my hands today. It's thinking outside of the box and doing something like that could save a life is what we're all here for. Why I joined the industry 25 years ago, why I got involved with this. So that lockdown, I could just picture that being put in a school system and hopefully someday saving somebody's life.
Or hopefully never having to be used. But I
Absolutely.
agree. The ultimate goal is it never needs to be used, but if it's there, I think it saves somebody's life in some scenario. Back to the Optex beams, we do have a 200-foot and a 350-foot, so a dual lens and a quad lens, but the 200 and 350. And again, right, listening to, as the TAM team we are your voice within our, we hear you, we're your voice with our product team. We showed the sales team today the IQ Remote PowerG. So, something that, people have wanted to see was an IQ Remote that was better, better, faster, stronger, that's, increased, connectivity. So that's coming. We're going to have the PowerG IQ Remote. We're going to have, what else are we going to have? We're going to have lots of stuff. Like, there's going to be a lot of new devices coming. There'll be a PoE version of that, of the IQ Remote PowerG too. I know that some people have been asking about that. So, the one thing, we want to say, from the JCI side is, please keep the feedback coming. Don't be shy, ask questions. I hope people are asking questions in chat. We love, just interacting with you, getting that feedback, and just making our products better, and more applicable to what you need in the world, right? I mean, again, the world is constantly changing, and we want to help, be part of that change, right? So, all right, Whitney, Mark, I'm good. Do we have any questions in chat?
So many questions. I don't even think I could vocalize all of them. Mark is doing a great job. Lots of people have asked for some of those feature flyers. You can find a couple feature slides in the Sales Slick deck, but after the amount of requests, we might have to revisit that feature slide and bring that a little bit better to life. But there are two slides there's a spider slide and there's the IQ panel comparison chart. Okay, let's
Do we
see.
have PowerG part numbers for the Optex beams coming up soon, and just an estimated date there, Neil?
This website.
Yeah.
I was looking at that right before Neil called me out. Hold on.
Yeah, it's the PG 9200 X, PG 9200 AX, and PG 9350 SL. Those are the actual part numbers. The fact that I know that scares me.
It is a little scary. Okay, Justin asks, speaking of what Gordon was saying regarding construction sites, is there something similar to Resideo VideoFide that Qualys could do? Completely wireless, battery operated system for video verified security systems. I have no idea. I
think, and Gordy, keep me honest here, I think our PowerG PIR cams actually will do something very similar.
Yep, absolutely. It'll send multiple snapshots in, exactly the same concept, as a camera built into it. I think that's exactly what he or she is asking about right now. So
yeah, I mean, long battery life, PowerG range, images uploaded directly to the alarm.com cloud. All right. Indoor and outdoor rated.
And PowerG, so you can put it halfway down the road without even worrying about it. So
the more you know. Okay, Stephen asks, so will the PG9911B outdoor siren communicate with IQ Panel 4? Yes. So all of those devices that you saw are PowerG, which communicates with IQ Panel 4.
And PG9 in the 9911, sorry, the 9911 does have a strobe as well, and it is a bright strobe. I will tell you, if you have an outdoor siren strobe at your business, your house, wherever the case may be, no one is ignoring that noise and visuals.
Nice. I will have you know that the Sales Slick page that has the PowerG devices is correct. So sorry I flubbed the slide, but I did get it right on the slicks.
I should have caught it. I'll take the blame. You've been busy.
Okay. Will metal buildings with lots of offices inside require repeaters, or will PowerG be good enough? Asks Danny.
That's a great question. I'll go in and Gordy may add into it, but I mean, ultimately, it's hard to tell if you're going to need a repeater or not, right? It depends, again, right? Buildings, construction, whatever the case may be. One of the great things about PowerG is you can tell right away, right? So if you mount your IQ panel, you've enrolled your contact, you can just tap your tamper, and you'll actually go into for lack of a better term, an installer test mode where it'll show you the signal strength, right? So you can get to your final location, press the button. If you're green, you don't need a repeater, right? If you're getting a little yellow in there, you probably need a repeater. If you're red, you definitely need a repeater. But that's built right on, like, so you can see that directly on the contact, and you can actually see it directly on the IQ panel interface as well. You can go in and see the signal strength of those PowerG devices. So, I'd love to say in every scenario you're not going to need a repeater. There are going to be scenarios you do need them, but I think you're going to find you need a repeater less than you think you probably do. Gordy, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like, we have done schools, we've done Cineplex theaters, but we normally added one anyways, just in case, a little bit further away. And it saves battery life is what I've been told, because they don't have to transmit as hard. I might be wrong on that, but I know that we added repeaters, just in case, even if it was green, the furthest point away from the building.
As much as I would love to say you were wrong, because you and I have known each other for far too long, but as much as I would love to say you were wrong, you're not, right? PowerG has adaptive power transmission, right? So based on your signal strength, that's one of the reasons that we tell people that when you get to your final mounting, like, you go ahead and learn them next to the panel if you want, but when you get to your final install location, tamper it a few times, it basically calls back to the panel and it determines the minimum transmission power strength it needs to stay in the good range. And then, by doing that, it obviously kickstarts the encryption, but it gets that adaptive power properly, so that you're gonna use less battery, right? Because it's gonna find the best path, if it needs to frequency hop. So yeah, I think I think again, people underestimate just exactly what PowerG can do and how it can do it.
Well, I love that it has the signal readings, because I think too often it's easy to assume it's going to work and then leave, and then you have so many go backs. So having diagnostics on screen with IQ panel combined with the signal strength on PowerG devices is like huge.
Yep.
Okay, we have lots of questions. Hold on. Some of them I don't fully understand, so I'm hoping Mark knows better.
I hope Mark knows better too.
Mark says we have the PIR camera operating at multiple locations with great results.
And sneak peek, the indoor PIR cam will be getting a refresh over the next 6 to 9 months. The outdoor one a little later, but there'll be a refresh, and one of the big asks is better image quality. So look forward for that.
We did have a question about the PIR motion. The specs say it's a 40-foot range. Does that mean 40 feet from the panel or 40 feet for the image to be readable? And Clint asked the question.
40 for the image to be read, for the motion to function, right? As far as its detection pattern, its detection range is 40 feet. It's probably it's way more than 40 feet. I mean, PowerG ranges hundreds and thousands of feet, right? So that's purely the detection range. Yeah. It's a great question.
Perfect. I think that's most of the relevant questions in regards to commercial. We do have a lot of questions about devices specifically, which is great. So we'll stay on the line a little bit and let Mark kind of answer those. But when I was talking to that dealer in Texas, I asked him what he felt like the best things about IQ Panel 4 and commercial installs that he had decided were important for him. And he said that one of the biggest ones was that the user interface is so simple to use. When it comes to learning a new panel, so like Neo's not available right now. Like at the end of the day, you can't get Neo. But if you chose IQ Panel 4, according to this dealer, using the interface was so simple and so easy. It required next to no training. And then he said that while it was so simple on the front end, the back end was so smart, and it allows for future updates and future feature sets that the customers and even him as a dealer has an option to use. I feel like the more we get into building IQ Panel 2, IQ Panel 2 Plus, IQ Panel 4, it's all about a customized experience, right? Like you can choose white or black. You can choose, do I want to use Bluetooth touchless disarming or do I not? Do I want to use this panel for a commercial install or a residential install? Or maybe a cafe? Like you can choose exactly the experience you want to do and the install you want to do. And this dealer was like, I love it. I have one platform. It's a single solution. for majority of my installs, and he's like just 100% converted. So, I mean,
Great.
that speaks for itself, right?
Send that dealer a hat.
Oh, you know what? I already did. So
you can have multiple selections of hats.
yes, we do have hats. Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for joining. We had a good group of people on. We got 5 minutes to go. Is there anything to add, Neil or Gordy? Mark, Bo, you guys in the background, anything you want to add?
Need more time to answer all these questions.
We'll hang on a little bit and we'll let Mark catch up with a question. So we won't end it quite yet. But thank you guys so much for taking time. Again, this is recorded. We will put it on YouTube. If you're interested in any of the slides or anything like that, that's where you can find it. Be sure to download those commercial slicks and that flyer before you go. And stay tuned. There is more exciting things coming. ISC West, we have a lot of announcements and new things up our sleeve. Trust me, I have the calendar. You don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for being here. Gordy, Neil, you guys did great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And if anybody has, if you have questions, that, you forgot to ask or they come up after the fact, you can reach out to, reach out to me. I think my email is on the part of on the registration. You can reach out to anybody on the TAM team, anybody on the sales team. We're here to help answer the questions that you have, and take that feedback. And if there's things that you want us to change, again, please tell us. That's what we're here for. So
yeah, when in doubt, hop on Facebook.
Yeah.
Good.
And you'll find me there too.
Okay, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my camera. Mark?
Yeah, me too.
When you're done catching up with questions, we'll be good to go. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.